You're listening to Ask Dr. Jake. My name is Dr. Jake Tucker, owner and founder of Good Life Family Chiropractic here on the south side of Lincoln. And we are coming to you today with another episode of Max Living Radio. Here, Ask Dr. Jake, giving you another message of health, hope, and wholeness. And as is happening every single day, we are talking to you about the keys to keeping your immune system healthy, keys to keeping your family healthy, because that is the only true way to prevent disease. Because by definition, sickness and disease are the absence of health, the lack of function. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And if you have any questions, feel free to call us at 531 289 7100. You can text us at the same number or visit us on the website at goodlifefamilychiropractic.com for more tips on staying healthy. And you can also just visit us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Ask Dr. Jake. If you're following along right now, you can see me live as we're broadcasting this episode, posted to the Facebook page and redistributed across to our YouTube page as well. So I did want to talk this morning about just some of the things that are going on in our healthcare system and our health culture, because when it comes to being a believer and thoughts about our health, we cannot risk doing what most Americans are doing. Because if we do what culture is doing, when we fall in line with what culture is teaching, we're going to end up like most of the rest of the culture. And unfortunately today, that means bankrupting our bank accounts. And number two, it actually means bankrupting our health and robbing ourselves of our potential to meet the plans that God has for us. And remember, God gave us free will. It's our own choice that allows us to choose to either love him and serve him or reject him and go the opposite way. And when it comes to health, that's something that we can choose to do that will actually rob us of the ability to do those things that God created us for, even if we have every intention of fulfilling that. Because let me tell you what, I have seen time and again, patient after patient with the willingness to go serve and the generosity to go serve, but they're stuck on their couch, suffering from a lifestyle caused disease, something along the lines of type 2 diabetes, obesity, things that they may think are due to genetics, but the research shows, and time and again, we see over and over again, patients coming through the office, that it was what they made decisions for themselves. Now, a lot of these decisions were made out of ignorance. And in Hosea, it says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." And so I'm here today to help educate you and help lead you out of the path of destruction and onto the straight and narrow, the plans that God has for you. And that really starts with understanding where health comes from and the trouble that we've gotten ourselves into as a country. We are right now the sickest industrialized nation in the world. And you look at the healthcare outcomes of people that enter our healthcare system, it's abysmal. Almost 2 out of every 3 patients in the United States today will die of either cancer or heart disease, which are considered almost 90 to 95% lifestyle preventable and oftentimes reversible diseases. And so we have to start thinking about this differently. And the way that we have to start thinking about it differently is by addressing cause. And so that oftentimes means acknowledging that we have a problem when we didn't realize in the first place that we did, or we don't want to admit to ourselves that we had a problem. We don't want to admit that the way that we prepare our coffee in the morning actually increases our inflammation and increases our stress levels because of its effects on our cortisol levels. We don't want to admit that breakfast cereal or donuts probably has way too much sugar, not just a little bit too much sugar. That the one, I'll just have one soft drink that we have for lunch is probably 4 times the amount that we should be consuming on a weekly basis, and not just a little bit too much. We don't want to admit that, we had just a little bit of dessert tonight, but we also had a little bit of dessert for lunch, and we had a sweet snack after breakfast as well. And all of these things add up to where we are, where we have over a 50% likelihood that you or a family member will end up with diabetes or pre-diabetes. This is a major problem. The cost of diabetes is astronomical on our healthcare system. It is a predictor for virtually every other disease that we die from. The price of obesity, where over a third of us are obese and over 2/3 of us are obese or overweight, it corresponds almost 1-to-1 with the type 2 diabetes rates. And these are lifestyle preventable. Now, oftentimes there's an interference in thinking, an interference in nutrition, an interference in function coming from the central nervous system, the control mechanism. And so what we have to do is we have to throw out this old model of thinking that when we feel good, we're fine. And we see this right now with COVID. We see all these young people that are getting infected. Not all of these. It's actually extraordinarily rare for a young person to get infected with COVID, in spite of all the cases that might be being reported in the media right now. But we see this supposedly young, healthy person who gets infected with COVID and deals with catastrophic side effects of contracting the virus. And we assume that the virus is extremely dangerous because it affected this young person and maybe even killed this young person. And while that's a tragedy, what it reflects is more in misunderstanding of what health is. We assume that because they felt fine before they got it, that they were actually healthy, when that is in no way the definition of health. You can look good and you can feel good, but it's still possible to drop dead a second later of cancer or heart disease. Think about that. You can look good and you can feel good, and it's possible to drop dead 1 second later with cancer or heart disease. And those are the two most common causes of death in the United States. And I had to have this conversation with my dad. He had come down to visit when my first son was born. And it just shocked me because I'd been away going to school for some time and hadn't seen my dad in person for a while. And this is before the days of video chatting. And he was not just overweight, he was morbidly obese. And he had lost the color in his lips and tongue. His cheeks were pale. His ankles were swollen and had turned blue. And I sat down across the dinner table from my dad and I just asked him what happened. And he didn't know I was talking about it at first because he felt fine. But what he had done is he had lifestyled his way into congestive heart failure. This is a guy that worked over 100 hours a week most weeks. This is a guy who ate out virtually every meal for the week and, would pack lunches that my mom would send with him, but was very oftentimes supplementing that with food out of the snack machine. And he did this every single day, 5 to 7 days a week, just depending on how busy he was. And he lifestyled his way into heart disease. And so I had an intervention with him and I talked about the laws and principles of health and healing, how God designed the body to be healthy and to be well, and how continuing to make poor decision after poor decision when it came to fitness and nutrition and toxicity and lack of wellness care and lack of self-care when it came to his spine and his nervous system was leading down this path towards sickness and disease and destruction in his body. And he got it. Fortunately, he got it. And I was able to get him plugged in with an office that was near his home. And over the next year, he lost over 50 pounds. And he was able to shed the label of the congestive heart failure and heart disease. And he is younger today at 64 than he's ever been over the course of the rest of his life. And I just want to applaud my dad for the effort that he's put into maintaining his health. And it didn't stop just because he shed a label. It never stops. You're either choosing to actively build health or build disease in your body, whether you know it or not. And so if you're ready to start making that decision to choose health and build health inside your body, I suggest you pick up the phone and call my office at 531-289-7100. And when I looked at my dad, one of the first things I told him was that he had to begin by addressing his spine. We had to address with the central nervous system and how it was affecting him. Because when I looked at his spine, the biggest red flag I saw was his chronic head forward posture. His head was stuck so far outside of his shoulders that according to the research, he had a 50% increased risk of a cardiovascular event, meaning heart attack or stroke or anything else along those lines, just because of his posture. 2 inches or more does that to a person. And if you don't believe me for the neurological effects that your posture has, everybody drop your chin down to your chest right now and try to take a deep breath in. And then once you finish that, sit up straight and tall, head back, shoulders back, and take another deep breath in and just feel the effects on your lungs of that head forward posture, of putting stress on your central nervous system. And we see that consistently. So we see that scoliosis, if it's between the shoulders and affecting the neurological output to the lungs, will actually decrease your respiratory capacity, that your lung capacity drops. We see that having a scoliosis is the same effect on life expectancy and life quality as type 2 diabetes. And yet so many people wait to do anything about it until after it's too late. Don't be one of those people. Pick up the phone, go to the internet right now, call my office, visit goodlifefamilychiropractic.com or text us at 531-289-7100, and we will be happy to help set you up with an appointment to begin transforming your health, transforming your life so that you can begin to accomplish those things that God wants for you. My dad is an elder in his church. You think it's an easy thing for a church to replace an elder? But we're having to do it over and over again, not just because of heart disease, not just because of cancer, not just because of diabetes. Some people die before they get to that point. And our life expectancy is dropping. Our mortality rates are increasing. Our country is more affected by COVID than any other country in the world because we are sicker than every other industrialized nation in the world because we are not being proactive with our health, because we don't understand what health is. Health is a state of 100% optimal function and healing. And there is one system in your body that controls that. It is your central nervous system. Think about it. For your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe, for a cut on your leg to heal, a signal has to go from the brain, run down the spinal cord, and out the nerves to every organ, cell, and tissue in your body. It doesn't happen any other way. And we know this because if we separate the intelligence that God put in your brain by snipping your brainstem, every organ, cell, and tissue below stop, and you die. If we cut all the nerves that go to the heart, it stops, and you die. But that's incredibly rare because God surrounded and protected that system with bone. The spinal column and every individual vertebra surround and protect your brainstem, the spinal cord, and the nerve roots as they exit out. And they protect the most vulnerable regions. And that spine has a normal position. The problem comes when it goes to abnormal, when it shifts out of that straight position when you're looking at it from the front, or that 345-degree curves when you're looking at it from the side, just like you see off to my left. When it leaves that position by even 2 millimeters or more for even 5 minutes, that's enough to restrict the flow of brain impulse between the cells at the end and the brain at the other end by as much as 60%. And if you're dealing with a chronic condition, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, or just chronic pain, headaches, migraines, sciatica, or even if it's acute, if you just got it this last week, pick up the phone and call my office. We specialize in addressing cause. DC is the initial of my doctorate, Doctor of Chiropractic, also Doctor of Cause. 531-289-7100. First 5 callers today get a 50% discount. Again, 531-289-7100. Join me again tomorrow for another episode of Ask Dr. Jake.